I saw this article and it made me think about so many things. The first thing that it made me think about is just the direct impact. I think about Generation Z, but I also think about young women, especially in the context of consumerism is heavily targeted on young women being influenced to feel better. The metrics around what you should be purchasing in order to be that kind of girl with this type of aesthetic, etc., etc. And it made me a little bit sad, to be honest, because it's looking at soothing their economic despair by plunging themselves further into debt. Now, when you read this article, which is a brilliant article, by the way, when you read it further, it goes on to highlight that it's not just Gen Z that are spending. I think they said millennials are 40. I think it's 43% of millennials and 35% of Gen Z, which is why I found it super interesting that we focused on Gen Z doing this. But nevertheless, it's this thing around the optimism or the difference in generations in terms of optimism and feeling that there's any sort of security in the future is leading groups of millennials as well as Gen Z to have increased debt, to have increased debt, student loans, etc., etc. And the thing about it is that this is like a vicious cycle because now it's started, you've increased your debt, but suppose things don't turn out to be as, what do they call it? They've named this doom spending, but suppose the outlook of the future isn't as bad as we think, and that maybe you might be 23 now, but you might be 35. Things have improved, and you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt for purchases. And I think this is also an opportunity, and I think there's several opportunities here. I think there's the opportunity around organizations doing more, because I think about financial goals, and financial goals shouldn't always have to be about buying a house. A financial goal could be having 3 months salary, or what do they call it, the FU fund or whatever, being able to say you can save for that. But this is also where I think organizations have a responsibility to start to help these younger generations move. When I say move, I mean like move forward with seeing that it is worth it to have some financial goals and helping them with the literacy around it to even get to that point. What more can be done to help this younger generation? Now in the article they do talk about college age, and I think the young lady is being supported by her parents, and as I said, I think it's a multifaceted one. How can parents do more to help their children achieve financial goals? Can it be a family thing that you kind of come together? I don't begrudge this young lady spending $2,500 on her vintage Chanel bag. It's not fast fashion, etc., etc. But maybe it's an investment and maybe the value of the bag will go up. Agreed. But I think there's many other ways to avoid doom spending that might come back if everything doesn't end up tragic, that would lead to a overly indebted, overly extended, very young population who will potentially feel even more depressed because their salaries that they earn, which are realistic salaries, might not cover their debts so that they can even live a life at the level and the lifestyle that they want. I mean, of course, there's the economic backdrop as well. But I think the doom spending, or as they've called it, doom spending for me is the one where I think there's so many wonderful women and resources out there dedicated to financial literacy, financial advice, and it shouldn't just be restricted to kind of things on TikTok, but also developing this financial advice, or sharing more resources to help them break this cycle of doom spending because the habit, once embedded, won't actually change. And it would be such a shame to have so many young women who are just anybody, but I'm specifically talking about young women as they're the main targets for consumerism, not ever be able to have any sort of financial freedom because of the decisions they made between the ages of, I don't know, like 19 and 24, where it felt like this was a better way to enjoy life as opposed to anything else. So yeah, it just got me thinking in terms of, as they're entering the workplace, to have that support. Maybe kind of university slash colleges to also provide this kind of service and support, to really start to change the short term, mid term, long term outlook for these young women. Because there are so many other economic and wealth gaps that women are facing, that this is literally going to compound an already huge gap, chasm, if you will. It's going to compound this exponentially over the next 10 to 15 years.